life is a waste if you try to protect yourself from hurt, because that's the whole point. The whole point is to love very deeply, even if you lose very deeply, because it means at least you loved.
Welcome to Shoulda Books, the podcast about all the books you should have read by now. My name is Jonathan, and today my guest is Tori Dunlap. Tori is the founder and CEO of Her First 100K, a company that seeks to empower women through financial education. You might have seen Tori on Instagram or TikTok at Her First 100K. She has over 2 million followers on each platform. She's also an author herself. She wrote the New York Times bestseller Financial Feminist, and she also has a podcast of the same name, which is consistently ranked as one of the top business podcasts in the country. And you can see her skill as a podcaster in today's episode. We had a wonderful conversation, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But first, the Shoulda Book Club. We are wrapping up our January book, The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. That episode comes out this Saturday, January 31st, and I am thrilled. I really enjoyed this book, and I can't wait to talk about it. And I also can't wait for next month's book, which is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. That's right. We're doing a thick book in a short month, but you know what? We're going to get through it. We're going to have a great time. I am really excited for Bronte month. I'm excited for this book. I'm also excited for something that I'm going to do for the release of the Wuthering Heights movie, which you will have to stay tuned for. But there is something this way coming. I thought I was going to try to do something. I don't know what I was going to try to do there. But without further ado, what I'm going to try to do right now is get you into my episode with Tori Dunlap. Let's hit the books. Tori Dunlap, welcome to Shoulda Books. How you doing?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for being here.
This was so hard. I said that to you off mic. This was so difficult.
Yes,
but I'm so excited.
We were just chatting off mic about how difficult of a question this really is, how much of a sadist I am for asking this question, and how I get to dodge the answer and not reveal what it is. But you have done the hard work of picking 3 books that you think everyone should read. What was the process like?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. The process was, I need to come up with my 3 books. These are 3 books I remember deeply liking and having a deep impact on me. I sent it to my assistant. My assistant sent it off to you. Okay. Then yesterday, I'm like, my recording is tomorrow. Oh my God, I've forgotten these 2 very crucial, important books in my life. And I sent you a very last minute email that was just like, hi, I'm so sorry to do this. I need to change everything.
And that's okay.
I have my whole stack here, even of the books I recommended that I was going to talk about, but then decided not to talk. It's just like, I'm a huge reader. I love reading very deeply. As someone who has now written a book, like I have so much respect for authors, and I just love talking about books. So I'm just excited to be here.
I know one of the questions that you like to ask people when you're interviewing is, what is your earliest memory with money? And I think that's an incredible question. And it has really gotten me thinking about it. I could go into a Proustian reverie right now about my first memory, but let's flip it around and look at books. What is your earliest memory with books?
I love that question. If you had to choose one. Do you know the quote from New Girl that like Nick says, I don't know if I know how to read. I just remember I just remember a lot of words. Do you remember that quote? I
don't think I watched all of New Girl. I watched enough that I probably should know that quote, but I don't remember.
He just has this great quote where he's like, I'm not sure I know how to read. I just think I memorized a lot of words.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like an Arthur book when I was a kid.
Yes.
And I think the first time I remember thinking, I actually know how to read. Like, I've got this, was reading that. But at the same time, I was having the Nick Miller moment where I was like, I'm not sure I'm reading this. I think I just know these words now by heart because I have a pretty good memory. That's probably the first time I remember thinking, I'm reading. I'm actually doing this for myself. But I had parents who, read me books before bed, and I was the obnoxious kid that was like, it's summer reading, bring it on. Like I I read too many books. We had this thing in 5th grade called Read Across America, where you basically, I think every state, you earned a state every 100 pages you read.
Oh,
and the goal for the whole year was to like read across America and back. I did it 3 times.
Okay. Not like, to brag.
No,
you were motivated.
Not to brag, but like I'm secretly very, very proud of that. I was always that kid. And I think as I started like getting more and more into books, one of the earliest memories I have is my parents were always like, I was just in the back seat with a book all the time, and they'd look up and check in on me. And especially as an only child, like that was just my space where we're going to the grocery store for 10 minutes. I'm bringing a book. They were always like, oh, what's she doing? She's reading. Okay. We're going to leave her in the back seat and have a good time.
Yeah. It's like, if there's only so much harm that can be done when a book is in hand. So yeah. So it started
you're
with
understanding the kind of kid I am.
I get
the kind of kid I was. Yeah.
I was, I think, very similar. I spent a lot of time, nose in book, staying out of trouble.
Overachiever.
Yeah. So it started with Arthur. Do you remember which Arthur book in particular?
Oh God, I remember it was a wedding.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What's the sister's name?
DW. Dora Winifred.
Yes, thank you. DW, I think was the ring bearer, and she lost the ring and the organ.
Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh my God, that's
here's the thing. I don't remember the book. I have to be honest. I don't remember the book version of that, but I remember the episode of the show.
Back recesses of my mind. And I think it was more of a picture book. It was not a chapter book.
Right.
But I remember very distinctly her reaching her hand in to get the ring out of the organ.
Yeah, the memory of someone like reaching into like the pipes of an organ was like, that was core memory. Oh my God, I haven't thought about that, and I'd rather not say how.
I haven't either.
What are you reading these days?
I am literally just about to finish Melinda French Gates's newest book called The Next Day.
Okay.
Without saying too much, I am in a fun transition period of my life where I got pretty serious news a couple months ago, and I'm trying to figure out how to navigate that. We have a fun illness in my family, and so just figuring out how to be a caretaker while also taking care of myself. And I'm finding some good wisdom in that. That's what I'm doing for an audiobook. Okay. And then I'm reading smutty romantasy.
Hell yeah.
On the
what do
side.
We got? What's on deck?
It's The Serpent and the Wolf, which so far I'm not like obsessed with, but it's fine so far. Okay. But I will say I just finished The Correspondent, and I'm sure you've heard about this book.
Everyone has been telling me about that. My sister just finished it.
It was my last book I read of 2025, and it's as good as everybody says it is.
That's what I've heard.
So
good. It's one of those books that is like incredibly hyped, but anyone who has read it is like, it lives up to the hype. So
I think, for knowing what I know a bit about you and your work, I think you'd really, really love it. It is one of those like very life affirming books where isn't it the word Sonder, where you're like, everybody has their own story and you're navigating around people, but they're just strangers, but they all have their own unique dreams and goals and struggles. And it's just beautiful. That
is one of those words where I'm like, keep meaning to go research it. And I haven't yet.
I have
so it right. I'm sure you do. And you know what? The great thing about the internet, people will let us know if that's not the case. But yeah, so before we get into the books that you brought, did the book that I send you get there in time?
It did not. What book did you send me?
Okay, I will reveal it at the end of this episode.
Okay, perfect. I'm excited.
Yes, so I chose a book, I shipped it, and it sadly did not get there in time. It will probably, you know what, it's probably going to get there while we're recording.
Probably.
So that's just how it goes. But at the end of the episode, I will reveal what it is, and you'll can make the call as to whether you think you're going to like it or not. So
perfect. I'm excited.
Without further ado, your first book that you think everyone should read, what do we have?
They are almost all blue covers. So there's something going on. I literally have a stack of books that are like my favorites, and they're almost all a blue cover, which is interesting. My first book I think everybody should read is Call Me by Your Name.
Nice.
Oh, this is gonna be this entire podcast is me just like audibly groaning. First of all, this is also my favorite movie of all time. So
okay, I have seen. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's okay. I'm just, please tell me everything about Call Me by Your Name, because I could talk about this book for an hour.
I've seen the movie and I love the movie. And I remember seeing it in theaters and being just, it was one of those movies where it was hard to get up out of the seat afterwards.
Yep.
And you just kind of want to just sit there. Maybe you want to sonder. I don't know if that's
it's a verb.
If it's we're verbing it. But I just remember being really struck by it. And it's one of those movies that like I will come back to every now and then. But I'm curious how the book or how the movie compares to the book.
Yeah. So I got introduced to it on a plane to Italy in 2019. I had not seen it. Okay. I had only seen Timothée Chalamet in Lady Bird and was like, oh, he's kind of hot, but his character's a dick. And was like, okay, whatever. Right. And then saw it on the plane and it became immediately a movie that I was like enthralled with, but also a movie that was very important to me and one of my very good friends. We were on that trip together. We listened to the soundtrack, literally driving around Italy. Mystery of Love became the song that we jokingly played on every single trip we took together to like wake each other up. Like, so the movie is very important to me. It also started a absolute bananas obsession with Timothée Chalamet. Anybody who follows me knows that like he's become part of the brand. Like I love this man, and it was because of Call Me by Your Name. So we're not here to talk about the movie. I highly recommend watching the movie.
Yes.
But this book is, I think, the movie adaptation is so beautiful of it. And there's some things I think in the book that are so unique that we don't get in the movie. It's narrated by Elio. And so we get a lot of his retrospective version of what happened, but also his like deep capital L longing that is so embarrassing when you reflect on it, but he manages to do it in a way that's just like, this was me falling in love. Yeah. And I also went back to Italy with the same friend in 2021 and went to all the filming locations. Like we went to Crema, went around, this was like right as COVID was like, you know, vaccines were coming out. It was okay to travel again. So it was like, nobody was there. And I have one of my favorite photos of myself of me reading the book at Elio's like spot. That's where he goes with like the glacier fed water. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. In a Talking Heads shirt, the same shirt that he wears. Oh my
God. Yes.
And
there was no one else there?
There was like one other person there.
It
was crazy. We brought champagne. It was so cool. So the monologue that happens in the book or in the movie is written line by line in the book.
The one that his father gives at the end?
The monologue at the end. Oh my God. That is so moving. And again, I'm trying to like talk about it without spoiling it. Sure. But I was going through a tough time in 2021, like recovering from heartbreak, feeling like I had just fallen in love and lost the absolute love of my life. And that monologue is so beautiful and is basically, again, I'm going to butcher it. You need to watch it. You need to read it. But you have to love even if you lose, because life is a waste if you try to protect yourself from hurt, because that's the whole point. The whole point is to love very deeply, even if you lose very deeply, because it means at least you loved. And that's line by line in this book. I think the sensuality of the movie is all in the page. And I just think it's a really beautiful compliment to a beautiful movie as well. So I highly recommend reading Call Me by Your Name, especially if you're obsessed with the movie.
That word sensuality, like when I think of the movie, that is the word that I think of, because it's like fully encompasses everything that word means. Like there's the sexual side of it for sure. No one's discounting, no one is denying that. But like just the way that film engages your senses. Like I think of the shots when they are having breakfast in that like that outdoor table, and there's just like close-ups on like I think they crack an egg or something in the
I
way
was
that
just going to say it's the egg
it's
cracking.
the egg crack. Yeah. And it's just, that's so cool that it is represented in the book as well. So it's the book you said is narrated by Elio.
It's by Elio after the fact, and there's scenes that we get in the book that don't happen in the movie. One that I think is really interesting. I understand why they cut it out, but he and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. Suddenly, Oliver. He and Oliver go to Rome together, and they go to like a poetry reading, and then they meet with the poet and his friends at dinner after. And it's just an interesting scene that, again, kind of builds up the time that they're spending together, because that's the other part of that movie and the book is that it's 6 weeks. Like, it's a very
I don't know if I
brief
realized
amount of
that.
time. It's 6 weeks. It's so quick. And you just start to see the different versions of their relationship, while knowing, of course, that this is 2 gay men in the 80s, that this relationship is doomed. So you're reading this whole book, right? And you're so enthralled with both of them while knowing the entire time this will not work. What's going to happen, because it can't work.
I'm curious, since you saw the movie first and then you watched, so you saw the movie, then you read the book. When you were reading it, were you picturing the actors from the movie as the characters, or did you like kind of push that aside and then create your own versions of them?
I mean, if I can picture Timothy Chalamet in anything, I'm going to do it. But
fair.
I think
Army Hammer. Maybe we
that
changed,
that was the edit I made. I think in my brain as time went on was it was less Army Hammer. I think when you said echoed the part about sensuality. What I love about the book and the movie is that it should have won or at least been nominated for sound design. It was crazy it wasn't, but the sounds, like you can hear the house, like you can feel that kind of stone house of Italy that's like a little cold even in summer. And then visually you end up seeing, like you can like feel the humidity on your skin. You can see the colors of the fruit in the trees and their swimsuits, like their swim trunks. Like all of that is just so apparent in the book as well as the movie. And the longing is so beautiful in the book. Like the prose is so lovely. And like I said, line for line, that monologue is directly out of the book. And it's, that guided me and kept me going through a really difficult time in my life. And I think is a monologue that I continue to return to for a reminder of, your goal is to not live life trying to hide or trying to prevent pain. Your goal is to live and feel deeply. And pain sometimes is a conclusion of that.
Words cannot express like just how beautiful and perfect like it felt to like absorb that for the first time, you know, of just like, and it's also just such a beautiful picture of like being a good parent, and it's just like he's just there for his son in a way that is so beautiful.
Did I overstep? That's one of my favorites. Did I overstep?
Yeah. And I think about the final shot of that movie where he's like sitting and like looking at the fire. I'm curious.
Which is not how the book ends.
That's what I was gonna ask. And also, apologies to anyone who hasn't seen the movie or read the book. We're gonna talk about the end. So here's your spoiler warning. But how does the end differ with minimal spoilers?
The end is them meeting after, I believe, 20 years.
Oh, really?
Yes. Which is not my favorite ending, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, I do love, as a reader or as a viewer, getting to interpret what that looks like. But kind of controversially, Andre Ackman wrote a sequel a couple years ago to Call Me By Your Name called Find Me. And it talks about Elio and Oliver, but it's really about Elio's dad finding another love, which is interesting, continuation of that story that's almost like a side quest.
Yeah. Huh.
But yeah, it ends differently than the movie does. And I think the movie ties in some ways a better button, but in worse ways from like a storytelling perspective, we don't get closure. And I think that's actually a beautiful thing in the movie.
Yeah. I think the lack of closure is like, to me, for the movie, kind of felt like the point. And to go to like what that monologue is saying of just like, yeah, the point of life is like, things are going to happen. You're going to get hurt, but like you still have to embrace it. Things are going to happen. You're not going to get closure. You know, I mean, that's why we love stories, is because they give us, well, one of the reasons we love stories is like it gives us a chance to get that closure that we don't get in real life.
Yeah.
But,
and I think one of the things that the book clarifies, really quickly, is there's that moment in the monologue after where Elio asks his dad almost alludes, and it's interpreted differently depending on who watches it. And it would be interesting to hear your interpretation, where he basically says like, what you and Oliver have is once in a lifetime. And like, it's something like, and I'm trying to find it here. There's basically, you can interpret it as your mother and I never had that, or like, that's just really lucky for you to have. And then Elio's response is like, does mom know? And some people interpret that as, and it happens in the book and the movie, but in the movie, a lot of people interpret it as, does mom know you two are not soulmates? Does mom not know that you do not feel the way for her that I feel for Oliver? And in other to her interpretations, which is my personal interpretation, it's just, does mom know what's going on between Oliver and I? Like, does mom know what's going on? And so in the book, he says, quote, I wanted to ask him how he knew, but then how could he not have known? How could anyone not have known? Seemingly speaking about him and Oliver. Quote, does mother know? I asked. I was going to say suspect, but corrected myself. I don't think she does. His voice meant, but even if she did, I'm sure her attitude would be no different than mine. So the way I read that is more confirmation. Oh, does she know about Oliver and I?
Yeah.
But then knowing that there's a sequel where dad moves on to somebody else, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I want to read this, and I want to read the sequel. Yeah, I think I know that like one of the conversations around this book and the movie is the age gap, which is like, you know, it is.
And without sounding too like, I'm going to justify it. Age of consent is 17 in Italy. And I also think that, again, it's like you have to view things in the time they were in. We were not having conversations in the same way that we are now about consent in the 1980s with two men. Like we should have been, we were not. Yeah. And also, it's a little weird. So both of those things I think can be true. Yeah.
Both can be true. But that is a great pick. I'm excited to see. I'm excited to check that book out and rewatch the movie too. It's been forever since I've seen the movie. But what
Grab your
is
tissues.
your? For real. I can't believe you watched that on a plane. You must have been.
I watched it on a plane.
Like, do you cry more on planes? I certainly do.
I do.
Okay.
I don't know actually if I cried the first time, but now I can't watch it without crying.
Okay.
And I think because especially that monologue now means so much more to me. Yeah. I wish this is the classic, as someone who also cares very much about film, I can't believe I watched that movie for the first time on a screen this big. Like, I am mad at myself looking back, but I've watched it enough times, I think, to have redeemed myself. So I think we're okay.
What is your second book?
Oh, I'm trying to decide what to do next.
Dealer's choice.
All right, we're doing Life of Pi next. Have you read Life of Pi?
I have not read Life of Pi.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I haven't. I actually haven't seen the movie either.
Also a beautiful film. I don't mean to just pick movie adaptations, I'm realizing, but I think because these books are so good, they got movie adaptations.
Yeah.
Oh, you will love this book. Again, from what I know about you. Do you know the story at all?
I know a little bit. You sent me.
It's going to be very hard to talk about it without spoiling it, but I feel like we have to.
So I think we're going to kind of give a blanket statement of spoilers ahead. Proceed with caution.
I'm just trying not to ruin it for you too, but I think we're going to have to in order to talk about it effectively.
This is the sacrifice that I make. This is, look, I'm taking one for the team here. But I'll tell you what I do know about it,
Okay.
which is tiger in a boat with a boy.
Yep.
And the movie looked really cool, had great visuals, won some Oscars, didn't get around to seeing it. And that's about it.
I have also seen the stage show. I saw it on Broadway 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And there are many animals, and they're all played by puppets.
That's
kind of like,
cool. Lion King?
Warhorse. Yeah,
Okay.
Lion King. Yeah. And it was beautiful and cried the whole time. So the beginning of this book sets up who Pi is. And my favorite part of the beginning is that Pi is a God-loving person, but wants to be a member of a Christian religion and Islam, and I believe Buddhist. And he goes to each one and he's like, okay, I'm going to be a member of all of them. Uh-huh. And the three religious leaders meet and they're like, well, you can't do that. And he's like, why can't I do that? Like, I like different parts of this. I just want to think about spirituality and God and my connection to the world around me. Like, why can't I be three religions at once? And that drives so much of this book. I read it in high school. It was required for me to read in high school.
Okay.
And loved it then. I have actually only read it that one time and I need to read it again. But as someone who grew up very religious, I went to 18 straight years of Catholic school, church every Sunday. Like, my relationship to spirituality, even as I was participating in a organized religion, was never really about organized religion. It was about my connection with humanity, with something out there, with just like capital L love. And what I love about this is he's just immediately challenging just the system and the way of like, why can't I be three religions at once? Like, you all kind of work together. Like, why can't I do this? So he and his family run a zoo. And what happens is they're transporting the animals on a ship, and the ship, there's a shipwreck, and he is stranded alone on a boat with a hyena, an orangutan, a wounded zebra, and a 450-pound Bengal tiger named Richard Parker.
Dream rotation.
Wait,
his
fuck,
name
Mary
is,
kill.
Yeah, his name's Richard. The tiger's name is
tiger's name is Richard Parker.
Richard Parker. Okay,
and
cool name.
Soon the tiger has basically gotten rid of everybody except Pi.
Okay,
and the rest of the book is him being challenged for, I'm trying to remember how many years it is. I don't think it's a castaway 7 years, but it's like a long time.
Okay.
Him literally coexisting on this boat with this tiger. But all of this, I'm sensing a theme here in my own favorites, is retrospective. He is in a hospital telling kind of like the person who's reporting what happened on the shipwreck.
Okay.
And the guy who's reporting what's happening on the shipwreck is like, this guy is like kind of insane. Like, there's no way this happened. There's no way he was on a boat. And the whole time he's telling this story, he is slowly convincing this person that this actually happened.
Oh,
but
interesting. Okay.
Spoilers here.
Okay, here we go.
And this is where it breaks my heart to tell you this, but we have to talk about it.
Okay. All right, here we go.
He gets to the end, and the guy, the end of the story, he survives. He watches Richard Parker walk off into the forest in this island. He's gone through like crazy stuff. He's gone to an island with meerkats that I believe eat flesh. Like, he's told all these crazy things. And he gets to the end of the story where he's like, yep, Richard Parker just walked off into the forest. I never saw him again. Where the guy is like, okay, but this still sounds insane. And he goes, okay, let me tell you a different version of the story. So rather than a hyena and an orangutan and a tiger, he talks about his mother and the cook on the boat and other people that slowly die. The orangutan is his mother. I believe the hyena is the cook who's vicious and tries to eat everybody when, he has to survive. And he basically gets to the end, and it's only about 3 pages where he's telling a different version of the same story without the animals and without all of this seemingly symbolic elements. And he goes, does it really matter what happened? Or does it matter what the better story is.
Oh, wow. Holy shit. Wow. Well,
Like, does it really matter?
Damn.
I'm the only one who survived. Does it really matter?
Yeah. Huh.
Or does it matter what the story is? And first of all, I remember reading that and being so angry. I was like,
it is kind of a,
I've read this
fuck you
entire
at the
goddamn
end.
book. Truly, I've read this entire goddamn book, and you're telling me that there was no tiger and there was no orangutan? And then I asked myself, what does it matter? What does it matter what true is if I am soothed and entertained and challenged and now I don't think we should lie, right? That's not the moral of the story, is like lie out your ass and like come up with falsehoods. Right. But like, I just love the challenge of that, of like, what's the better story? Which story is this?
What I started thinking of right then was Santa Claus, of just like Santa, again, spoiler alert, Santa's not real. Or so some say, but like, it's a lie, but it's something that brings so much joy and is so like integral to so many people's experience of growing up. I did not grow up believing in Santa Claus, so I also can very much relate. I grew up very, very religious. I was homeschooled Baptist, and so that. You are right. That does sound like a book that is going to be right up my alley. That's a super interesting concept to think about in relationship to religion, of like, what is the better story? What are your thoughts on that? Like, how do you think like that lens shapes how you look at religion?
I'll read you the end and then I'll answer that, because I think it's so good. He says, so it's back and forth between him and like the investigator. So this is Pi. I told you 2 stories that account for the 227 days in between. Yes, you did. Neither explains the sinking of the ship. That's right. Neither makes a factual difference to you. That's true. You can't prove which story is true and which is not. You must take my word for it. I guess so. In both stories, the ship sinks, my entire family dies, and I suffer. Yes, that's true. So tell me, since it makes no factual difference to you and you can't prove the question either way, which story do you prefer? Which is the better story? The story with animals or the story without animals? Yes, the story with animals is a better story. Thank you. And so it goes with God.
Wow.
And to really spoil it at the end,
there's another twist?
More that the investigator in his report tells the story of the animals.
He chooses the better story.
Because it's a leap of faith. And the last lines of the book are, very few castaways can claim to have survived so long at sea as Mr. Patel, and none in the company of an adult Bengal tiger. So, I mean, again, it is the, like, I am not condoning lying. The conclusion of this book, especially if you've not read it, is not like bullshit your way through life and just like make up things.
Yeah.
It's more, one, you could argue like it's a coping mechanism to deal with trauma. Like if you want to go very psychological about it, it's like, I saw these horrible things happen. I saw my family die. I had to survive on this lifeboat and encounter all these terrible, horrible things. And this was my coping mechanism. And I think that's true. But for me, with the tie to religion, we think all the time about the like fables or even stories we tell ourselves, right, that teach a lesson. Many people, can argue, and this is not a, time for a religious debate on like,
sure,
did Jesus Christ exist? Did these things actually happen? Was there this one Buddha? Was there Muhammad? Like you can do this forever. But I don't think that's the point of any of it. Whether they really truly existed or not, you're there to learn through story. And just like we're, having a conversation on this podcast, on this show about like the power of books to teach us something, I think that we can pinpoint in our lives a million stories that we were told, many of which are fiction, that impacted us and impacted the way we view the world and the way we choose to think about ourselves, our relation to others, our relation to why we're here on earth, and what's the better story of all of that. And I actually wrote one of my essays to like get into a certain program in college about this book. It was like a prompt to like, talk about a book that was really important to you. I was and still am like a very factual person. It's like, I'm very logical. I want the facts because that's real, that's true. But that loses all the whimsy. Like there's no joy, there's no whimsy, there's no like messiness in that. Yeah. And I think I became a much more interesting, better rounded, more joyful person when I stopped just caring about what the true story was and instead being like, no, there's a lot more mess to it than that. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Absolutely. And it actually brings me to something that I wanted to ask you, which is, this is a podcast, bring on 3 books you think everyone should read. You work in the sphere of finance. Yeah. And 2 of the books you brought are novels, and I think that like finance, at least from my perspective, is a world that tends to like dismiss like fiction and the arts in general. And like, and so I'm curious, like how you think art can and should impact like those other spheres, like finance, like science, like, the things that are like because there's such a push right now to like discount like the liberal arts because they don't make you money. They don't, they're not quote unquote useful. Right. But hearing That's you talk about that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm curious like what your thoughts are on that.
My background is in theater. So I have a theater degree and then I have a comm degree. So I studied liberal arts for my entire life. That was my background. Like English was my favorite subject in school. I don't have a degree in finance. I don't have a great degree in business. And I think it makes me actually really well equipped to do the work that I'm doing now because of everything we just kind of talked about. I see personal finance as not about numbers at all, but about options and freedom, especially for marginalized groups. And my work is really obviously focused on women, but is focused more on how do we get this very tangible thing that offers so many options and flexibility to the people who need it most. Like, how do I help educate them in a way that isn't going to talk down to them, that isn't going to be super jargony or like finance bro-y, to get them to understand that this actually has nothing to do with a stack of paper or the amount in your bank account. It has everything to do with the life you're able to create and you being able to be the most generous, healthy, stable person possible. And so I think because I don't have a background in that of, strictly finance, very numbers driven, frankly, very like patriarchal, I think it actually makes me a lot better at my work and allows us to connect to people who need it most in a different way than a lot of people in this industry. At the same time, my entire life is a nonfiction book. I read very little nonfiction because I think I get the most joy personally out of novels, but also, we were talking off mic about some of the books that just remind us of our humanity. And I think we need so much more of that right now at a moment where, it's going to make me cry, but we feel very disconnected from our humanity. Like things are happening literally every moment of every day.
Absolutely.
That feel so unsafe, that feel so volatile. And I think we need more of that reminder, especially in a way, again, it's back to the better story. It's always back to the better story in a way that doesn't feel like, I'm sitting down to do this very serious thing and I'm learning from this like very serious nonfiction book. It's like, no, I've learned more from Life of Pi than I've learned from almost every nonfiction book I've read. And I think that actually having that little disconnect of, it's fiction, it's made up, allows us to tap into something different because it is the better story.
Yeah, I think that like there is such a profound lack of empathy in the world right now, and there is, that's not it doesn't take much insight to realize that. But there are so many forces right now that are just completely inherently anti-human right now, and take your pick out of the list, But I think that like that is one of the things that fiction in particular can help push against, is helping you get into the mind of someone else. Like it's the one art form that like really lets you inhabit the mind of someone else in a way that movies do to an extent, but not to the same extent, the same way that like poetry does to an extent, but not quite to the same extent. So that's one reason why I'm so passionate about it and why I, want to do this work. But yeah, I think that like, there's probably a line that can be drawn. I'm not going to do it right now, but there's a line that could probably be drawn between like less liberal arts education and funding and like, Wall Street kind of taking over everything, because it's like talk about the story.
There's a million statistics that can prove that. Like when we take away music, when we take away theater, when we take away English classes in school, we take away a lot of critical thinking and a lot of creativity. And that leads to a more, more hatred, more violence, more disengagement. Absolutely.
It's a story of like exploitation. It's a story of like,
yes.
I am on this earth to extract resources from my surroundings, including
and
the
to
people
gatekeep as much as possible. Yeah.
To hoard it. Yeah, exactly. And it's like art and books, fiction, is something that like changes that story and lets you, and it lets you step into the shoes of someone who has gained everything, someone who has, won all of the business contests, whatever, and is at the top of the world, and they still feel hollow. It's like there's so much good and so much humanity that can be found there that is just completely missing from the structures that run our world. So.
Yeah, completely. And I think one of my other favorite parts about this book, and if I'm lucky enough to come back on the show, I'll talk about my favorite book of all time, Gatsby.
Yes, let's tease it.
But one of my favorite things about my favorite pieces of art, and I'll give you a movie example, which is Ocean's 11. I think that's the perfect film.
It's a great film. Movie. It's so much fun. Okay.
It's like top 5 of all time for me. It's so good. Is that if you want to just watch that, if you want to just read it, it's entertaining. It's fun. Like Gatsby is just, it's people having affairs and crazy parties and new money versus old money and people getting murdered. And like, it's so exciting. And then if you want to go green light, like symbolism, all of that, you can do all of that too.
Yep.
And I think Life of Pi is another good example of that, of like, I have my annotations from high school. I've had many conversations with one of my English teachers in high school, who's now a friend of mine, about this book. You can go deep if you want to go deep. And you can also just be absolutely entertained by the better story, which is a boy on a lifeboat trying to survive with a 500-pound tiger.
Boats filled with animals against the current, something like that. But
born back ceaselessly
into the zoo. No, I love Gatsby. It is like it annoys me when people like just dismiss it, because
me too.
It's so, there is just so much there, and it just is like the
talk
story
about greed
of
and
America.
Capitalism.
Yeah,
talk about that.
exactly.
Like,
and identity,
so
and like, it's so. We are gonna
yearning and okay, we can't talk about that today.
Wait,
okay.
yeah. Anyway, so you have one more book.
I have one more
that
book
you think everyone should read. What is it?
This book changed my life again at a really crucial time, and is my one nonfiction book today, and it is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Have you read this one?
I have not. No, but
okay, I'm going to order all of these and send them to you.
Oh my God. My girlfriend is a huge Glennon Doyle fan, and she's read this book, and she also said that it changed her life. Good. So I do need to read it. And I did listen to your appearance on We Can Do Hard Things, which I thought was...
thanks.
Yeah,
I was just going to say,
yeah.
I was lucky enough to, appear on their show last year, which was truly a career highlight for me and something I literally worked toward for like 5 years. I was just very excited to do that. This book opens with her introduction, which is her visiting, actually, ironically, again, a zoo and seeing a cheetah in a cage. And the kind of spectacle is the cheetah gets to get let out, presumably once a day, to go chase a pickup truck with like a thing dangling on it. And that's the cheetah's life now in this zoo, which again, whole other conversation about zoos and all of that. But the theme of this book is you are a goddamn cheetah. And that's what she says in the intro is you specifically, she's talking to women mostly here, I think, but like women have been confined to this cage. You can pick what that cage is, but whether, patriarchy or the expectations for us or what we think we should do or should be. And she's like, no, why? You're a goddamn cheetah. Like you are not put on this earth to exist in this cage that was built for you. And the through line is her relationship with her now wife, Abby, after discovering, having been married to a man for, I think 20 years, that she was attracted to a woman. And the way she describes meeting Abby, who is if you don't know who Abby Wambach is a absolutely celebrated, one of the best to ever do it, NWSL player, Olympian, World Cup like champion. She's incredible. Glennon describes Abby walking into a room and she goes, something in my being said, there she is.
Huh. Wow. And
that's the through line of this book of her basically doing this very, very scary thing in her 40s, which was dismantling her entire life. She had written publicly about her marriage, about her husband's infidelity, and about repairing her marriage after that.
Oh, wow.
And then I believe 2 years after that book came out, maybe not even, she met Abby. Wow. And it's just an absolute rallying cry for women. And as someone who read this in like 2019, 2020, and was beginning to really embark on the work that I was doing in the world, this was so important to me, and was also so important because I had very close people in my life. I can say it. It's okay. I talked about it on the show a little bit, but my parents were often, let's call it confused as to why I was doing the work that I was doing. And I think as people who always made the right decision and just kind of kept their heads down and just, did good work, it was very confusing to them why I wanted to challenge the status quo or to put myself out there as like a fully embodied woman. And it caused quite a bit of conflict in my family. As an only child, I'm very close with my parents. Like during this period of time, we're going months without speaking. It was very painful. And I have had a lot of professional accomplishments that I'm very proud of. This was probably the hardest thing I've done in my life was continue to do the things that I knew felt right to me, even if they did not make sense to my parents, and even if they actively caused a rift in my family. So there's a quote in the book that I adapted slightly to kind of fit my situation. But basically it was a girl becomes a woman when she stops being an obedient daughter.
Wow.
And that was what I needed to hear at that time. I needed confirmation from someone who is kind of a spiritual teacher, someone who is almost like a mother-like figure, to confirm that I was doing the right thing. Yeah. And I was. I have a better relationship with my parents now. I think they understand my work better. They've also understood that even if they have opinions, they don't get to voice them all the time. And, as somebody who's now in her early 30s, like that was a really hard thing I had to navigate in my 20s. And I think that every woman should read this book. And I think every man who loves a woman should read this book, because there's just so much in here to remind us of all of the stories, all of the narratives we believe, even from people who love us. and to decide if those are serving us anymore.
Yeah, it goes back to what you were saying with Life of Pi. Like, what is the better story?
Yeah, sure.
You know, of just like, is the story of like just following all the rules and meeting all the expectations of you, but like, feeling like you're in a cage and not having your, you know, not singing your song, whatever that song is, you know, like, or is it the story where you do the hard work and it's scary? It's so like, scary. I want to say that, like, I want to commend you, like, because that took bravery. That absolutely took bravery. And, you know, I certainly had, you know, my own kind of version of that, of like, you know, being raised super Christian and kind of then leaving that world completely, and like the kind of the break that happens there. But then still putting in the work to like maintain the relationship. It's tricky. It's really tough. And there are easier paths to do it. There's the easier path of just going along and feeling dead inside. There's the path of just like completely leaving people behind or leaving other, you know, situations behind. But like, all that to say is like, that is a difficult, path. And it sounds like this book is something that can help guide you down that path. I
now talk to, you know, we have an audience now of 5 million women. So I talk to, you know, dozens of women every day in our community. Mm-hmm. And the thing I hear over and over again is they have this feeling that they're meant for more, but then something tells them, oh, don't do that, right? Like, don't piss somebody off. Don't ask for too much. Just be grateful for what you have. The relationship isn't great, but it's fine. And that's all I'm worthy enough is fine. I'm worthy enough of fine, right? The job isn't great and I don't really like the work and I don't really feel mission aligned, but it's fine. It pays the bills. That I think is like the worst trap for women is the like, it's fine trap. And something happens for all of these women that I talk to where their head hits the pillow at night and the little voice that knowing, that like capital N knowing, or capital N, Jesus Christ, capital K knowing.
I was just going to cut.
I know how to spell. It's fine. I can go back and give you a straight cut, but also, you know what? It's fine. That capital K knowing speaks to you and goes, there's more than this. And like, you deserve more than this. But again, patriarchy is so good at telling you, no, you're not deserving of that. Why do you think you're worthy of that? And that's the thing I'm fighting against actually every single day. It's not about personal finance. It's not about knowing what a Roth IRA is. Like, all of those things are fine. But like, it's about reminding women of what they already know, which is you are worthy of love. You're worthy of opportunity. You are worthy of money. You are worthy of a lovely, lovely, beautiful, healthy life that might, and most likely it's not even might, will make people uncomfortable. Like, you will make somebody uncomfortable in your pursuit of that life. Whether that is a parent, your partner, society, you will constantly have to keep doing the thing that you know is true. And that was the kind of through line that I took, especially from this book, that I remind women of on my show all the time, which is, if you are making somebody else comfortable at the expense of your own comfort, you've lost. Like, if you are actively just coddling everybody else and putting everybody's needs before your own and saying, you know what, this is going to make somebody else uncomfortable, so I'm just going to suck it up. No, that's not a fun life.
How did this book find its way into your life?
Great question. This came out in 2020 and
hell of a year.
Literally, it came out, I believe, in March.
Are you really?
So yes, she had this whole book tour. She had this whole book tour ready and had to cancel all of it. And again, as somebody who's an author, like, I cannot imagine putting all of your time and effort into this book and not being able to do the press tour, because like the book and the book success relies on that press tour. But I think it honestly was the perfect thing to happen because this book just got it's just a wildfire. Like, the word of mouth on this book was insane in a lot of like women's self-development communities. And especially I think in that moment when we were all reckoning with, is this working for me anymore? Is my job working for me anymore? Oh, I'm a mother and I'm at home with my children and I'm also expected to work. Is this working for me anymore? I am at home and I cannot escape my domestically abusive relationship. Like, is this working for me anymore? Like, there were so many things that happened in COVID, I think, that especially affected women, that affected women of color, queer women, that like we have not yet as a society really reckoned with and talked about. In addition to, you know, people dying of a pandemic. Yeah. So I think that this book found me because I couldn't stop hearing about it. And I got it recommended to me, bought a copy, read it, loved it, hit me where it needed to hit me. And again, I don't think I would have been able to do my work that I do now, or at least in the way I do it now, if I had not read this book. You
talked about how your book, how devastated you would have been if you'd been in that position, not being able to do the press tour. So this is a very clumsy segue to just talk about your book. And what have you learned? Do you look at books differently now that you are an author? Yeah. Yes. In what ways?
God, yes. The first one is I don't use Goodreads.
Okay.
And I don't rate any books unless they're 5 stars for me.
Okay.
Like, I either rate them, if I believe they're 5 stars, I rate them 5 stars, or I don't rate them at all. Because people are vicious. Like, people are really, they want to tell you what they think about the book. Now, I will say, I am proud that I have like a 4.1 on Goodreads, which sounds low, but that is actually very high for Goodreads. Watch it plummet after this recording. But,
oh my God, yeah.
I have so much,
Goodreads right now.
Yeah, no, but I have so much, I have boundaries now with Goodreads. Like, I don't look at my own Goodreads anymore. I did it for the first week and then I was like, this is not healthy. And I have not touched it since. So then I also think about when I rate books, I either rate them 5 stars or I just don't put a rating at all, because even if I didn't like the book, somebody else probably will. Yeah. Like, there's a million reasons why I might not like a book, but somebody else will. And also, if I just truly think the book's shit, it is still so hard to put your art out there. Like, it is so vulnerable. Yeah. Most people who want to write a book never get started. Most people who start never finish. Most people who finish never actually get a publishing deal. Like, it is very, very difficult to be an author. So even if I thought your book was dog shit, like, I'm not going to tell you that, because I now know how much work went into that. Yeah. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing is that what I wish more people understood about any book, mine is nonfiction, but any book you're reading, the writing of it took a really long time. For me, it took a couple years, and then really a couple years before to like test the material. We were talking about like The Correspondent. I believe that was her 8th book she wrote, but the first one she had published.
Oh, so, wow.
Like,
the perseverance.
People have been at this for a really long time.
Yeah.
But what the average consumer does not understand is that at minimum, this is a 4-year process, like at minimum, just for one book, because you not only have to write the book or, you know, work with a co-writer if you're going that way, and then you go through an editing process. You have at least a 6-month period, really concentrated 3 months, but usually 6 months to a year, where you are then going out and marketing the book. And you're doing hopefully the Good Morning America, and you're doing the, you know, all the interviews. And I know you were probably on the sidelines and saw some of this with the Try Guys book, but like, you are going out and doing so much marketing. Like, you are doing so much just like selling your soul, trying to get people to pay $20 for this thing that you worked so hard on, that, by the way, you're only going to see 15% of. Because that's the third thing, is that in a traditional publishing deal, even these ones that seem super sexy and exciting, like I worked with one of the big 5 publishers, I get 15% of royalties.
Oh, wow.
That's what almost every author you're reading, that's how much you get. And again, for someone like, I've put my life into this book.
Yeah.
We still try to, you know, promote it, even though it's been out for 3 years, like it came out yesterday. We get a couple dollars.
Wow.
And so if you want to support authors, one of the best things you can do is buy their book from an independent bookstore, because you get to check, oh, I supported an author and I supported an independent bookseller. And talk about it with people. Like, talk about it, post it on social media. That makes such a difference because, yeah, there's so many, there's so much work that goes into this. You do not do it to make money. Very few people make money on the books. I am lucky enough where my book is like a commercial success. We've sold now almost 350,000 copies.
Wow.
The average book that gets published, not a book that gets written, the one that gets published with like a publisher will sell 3,000 copies in its whole life.
3,000.
3,000.
That is
3,000.
very low.
It's very low.
And that's from like the big publishers.
Or even just, it might be like a smaller imprint, but it got published. You got some sort of deal. We like to think about, we see these books like, it's Mel Robbins or it's, Rebecca Yarros or it's, Hunger Games or Harry Potter. And you're like, oh my gosh, you're making bank. That is like such a small group of people. Yeah. I wrote my book because I wanted to write a book. That was a commitment I made to myself when I was 7. Because I told myself I wanted to write a book someday. And I wanted this information to be accessible. Because I think that's really important. I make so much more money doing everything else. So like you write a book because you want to do it and because you know it's important. You don't write a book for vibes. Like you can't make money off of a book. So if you do love a book, talk about it, buy it from a local indie. That's so, so important to the author of the book you're reading.
Would you write another one? Do you want to write another one?
It's funny you asked that.
Oh.
I can't tease too much, but the second book is coming in a couple years.
Okay.
I'm in like process. Very, very early stages. Yeah.
Okay.
But it won't be a finance book, and that's what I will tease.
Oh, interesting. Is it? Mm-hmm. Can you say if it's fiction or nonfiction?
It will be nonfiction.
It will be nonfiction, but
yeah. Okay. And it will be adjacent.
Okay.
But let's say it'll feel actually a lot kind of like Untamed. It's going to be not just strictly like, let's talk about paying off debt, Roth IRAs. It's going to be for women and for really talking about women's worth. So I'm really excited about this next one.
Well, I can't wait for that to transpire. I don't know why I said it that way. I can't wait for that to come out.
To transpire.
to transpire. Sometimes
I'm so excited for to transpire.
But speaking of books in independent bookstores, I ordered you a book from a Seattle bookstore whose name I cannot remember.
I can just start listing them off. Elliott Bay.
Yes, that's it.
Okay,
it started with an E. Yeah. So anyway, supposed to get there, didn't get there. Hopefully we'll get there today.
I might go check my mailbox and watch it be there, but
but it is Swing Time by Zadie Smith. I don't know. Have you read that?
I know Zadie Smith. I've never read anything by her, and it's been on my list. So I love this.
It is really great. It's I also love White Teeth by her. I think
I've heard good things about that one as well.
They're both really fantastic. Swing Time is a little more recent, but it is about these two young women who are into tap dancing as kids. And then like it kind of follows their story as they grow up and drift apart. And it has
Jonathan,
to do
do you know I'm a tap dancer? Did you know this?
I knew you studied theater, but I did not know that you were tap dancer. So this is crazy. Okay.
This is perfect.
Then it sounds like you might be into it. It sounds like you might be into
pumped.
it.
I might start it tonight. That sounds great.
Okay. It's of course. And thank you for being here. Do you have anything you want to plug?
My book, Financial Feminist, is out if you want to be better with money. I'm going to plug the 2 books that I was going to talk about very quickly that I didn't get.
Let's do a speed run.
I had a panic attack about that I changed really quick. The first is One Day. I love this book. I've read it 3 or 4 different times. Again, apparently all of my books have been like turned into movies or TV, but this one is so good. Follows a couple every day. Or every year on the same day, July 15th, and where they're at in their lives. And I read it when I was 16, read it again when I was 20, and then read it again like 2 years ago. And I just love this book. It is so funny. It is so gut-wrenching in all of the good ways. And the adaptation they did on Netflix last year watch it if you want to cry for 4 days.
That's what
Next
I've
one,
heard. Yeah,
it's
that it was. Yeah,
so good, and it's way better than the Anne Hathaway Jim Sturgis movie that they made like 20 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Book Thief is my other one, narrated by Death. It is a Holocaust book, so again, go into it with that. But one of the most beautiful books, I think.
I haven't read either of those, but I want to read both of them now. It sounds like you kind of did your own version of One Day by rereading the book at like different times in your life.
That was kind of what
you were going for. And I wish that we could delve into that discussion, but we are out of time.
We can talk about it offline. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, and to everyone listening and watching. Thank you for listening and for watching. And in the meantime of what? I don't know why I said that. Anyway, keep reading, everybody.